The biodiversity of our planet is comprised of millions of species, each adapted to different habitats. After Darwin, the process of evolution has become a quest for biologists. Eastern Himalayas is considered as one of the global biodiversity hotspots. Unique geographical position and climate of Eastern Himalayas contribute to support their unique assemblage of plants and animals, many of which are endemic and endangered. A group of scientists from the Zoological Survey of India have been monitoring large and threatened mammals in the Indian Himalayan region.
So we have been monitoring wildlife in Indian Himalayan region. So monitoring, it includes science survey, it includes camera trapping, it also includes the most modernized tool of non-invasive genetics, where we collect the fecal samples and we process these fecal samples in lab. First we identify the species and then we go up to the individual identification. Then we try to understand the level of gene flow, the population structure, how the animals are moving using the landscape, and whether the landscape features is governing the species distribution. So it is kind of a next generation monitoring of wildlife using the non-invasive genetics. Arunachal macaque is one of the Sino-Himalayan macaque species that has been discovered from this landscape in Eastern Himalayas by Sinha et al. And they reported the distribution of Arunachal macaque in Tawang and West Kameng district only.
Arunachal macaque or Macaca munsala is a primate which inhabits the mid to high altitude forests of western Arunachal Pradesh.
So we prioritize this landscape to understand and explore the population of Arunachal macaque. Then Abhijit joined.
My name is Abhijit Ghosh. I am a PhD student, University of Kolkata, Department of Zoology. And in my PhD, I am studying Arunachal macaque for last 5 years.
Arunachal macaque is an endangered species as listed under IUCN Red List. According to the IUCN Red List, there are less than 240 to 250 mature individuals and the population is declining.
In small population, genetic drift and many other environmental factors work adversely that can cause extinction of the species due to low genetic diversity. So I started working on genetic aspect of Arunachal macaque, particularly population genetics.
So while Abhijit has joined me in 2018, he had some very preliminary survey in this landscape. So during his first visit, he collected a few fecal samples of Arunachal macaque from Tawang and West Kameng. While he analyzed these samples in lab, he was surprised and he came to me one day and said, "Sir, see, this population in the West Kameng is entirely genetically different." Then we look into the genetic makeup and structure on finer scale, and I was convinced. He convinced me, and we thought to place more efforts in this landscape so that we can get more samples and can also understand if there is any behavioral differences or maybe a phylogeographic differences.
Phylogeographic study is conducted to understand the evolutionary processes which are responsible for present geographic distribution of the genealogical lineages. In search of this enigmatic primate, the team made an expedition to the western Arunachal Pradesh.
So we paid a visit in Tawang, West Kameng, and we tracked this landscape up to the Jimithang.
Okay, so you come down, I'll check.
The overall trekking was challenging. Team installed several camera traps in the forest to record the possible movement of wildlife. previous studies and local knowledge helped to spot a few troops of macaques.
हमको वाटरफॉल के आसपास बंदर मिलने का चांसेस बहुत ज़्यादा है, तो वहाँ पे जाके पहले
After graceful sighting of monkeys, they collected fecal samples from Tawang district. Fecal samples are now collected, but the team has to work harder to find tissue samples. Way back to Bomdila, the team faced strong wind, rain and a flattening tyre of their vehicle the team hired. Finding feces was easier than searching for a possible carcass, which will be a source for tissue samples required for genome sequencing. The team has to pay extra hours in the field. While surveying in the West Kameng district, the team realized that approaching the troops in Tawang were easier. With an ample amount of samples collected, the team gets back to the laboratory for genetic analysis.
And after sample collection, we extracted DNA from this fecal matter. After PCR amplification and sequencing of cytochrome B and mitochondrial control region sequencing, I found that the West Kameng and the Tawang population of Arunachal macaque is very different.
They analysed samples from Tawang and West Kameng using several genetic markers based on DNA sequences from several macaque species.
So if we align this 1.96 million year, this is approximately mid to late Pleistocene transition. So about 2 million years ago is pretty evident. And while doing a detailed phylogenetic analysis, we found, yes, the macaque which we have documented below the Sela Pass mountains from southern or the eastern part of the Sela Pass range were completely different.
They reconstructed the phylogenetic tree to understand the evolutionary relationship and clustering patterns. Each node in this tree represents a common ancestor of the branches.
When we observed these results, we were in dilemma whether to say it is a new subspecies of Arunachal macaque, or we should say it is altogether a new species of primate.
Evolution is faster when there is a strong natural selection, and a few beneficial mutations often get fixed.
As we know that the evolution is inevitable, and there are several external forces that works to species evolve, and one of kind of example is allopatric speciation, where if there is any barrier occurs, and in due course of time these barriers might cause the species segregate, diverse into the different units, and many times they make a geographical isolation, which also subject to the reproductive isolation.
A species is a group of organisms that can successfully interbreed and produce fertile offspring. Therefore, for speciation and divergence, a population requires geographical isolation to prevent individuals from breeding with closely related populations.
These two populations of macaque, they diverged from each other about 2 million years ago, and this is exactly coincide with the middle to late Pleistocene transition. So we believe that large geological event shape the current distribution pattern and that allopatric speciation in Arunachal macaque.
After long separation, the population assimilates surplus changes and differs in specific requirements that enables individuals to avoid natural breeding with its neighbouring population and can be considered as new species.
Sela Pass mountain, which is a high mountain ridges in this landscape and it continues up to the Tibetan region. So we believe this has caused the split of Arunachal macaque into two phylogenetic species, and that's how this species evolved. So we believe that Sela Pass is has acted as a geographic barrier in this landscape. This macaque is in the eastern and the southern side of the Sela Pass. Is a new primate. We named it Sela Macaque, and after a brave girl, that Sela local tribal girl who helped the Indian army while the Chinese army invasion. So we have described the detailed phenotypic differences of Arunachal macaque and Sela macaque, and we characterize this is a new species of primate from eastern Himalayas.
During this study, we observed that in this area, human-macaque conflict is very high.
Sela macaque is basically causing more damage to the agricultural crops, and in West Kaming there is a little retaliatory killing also.
वो बंदर यहाँ पे देखा कहीं पे बंदर बंदर बंदर
बंदर तो ऊपर मिलेगा
मिलेगा
बंदर तो पकड़ते भी आदमी को हम तो बीच में हम भी एक तो पकड़ के लेके हम दे दिया किसी
Macaque is particularly having their habitats village areas. So villagers, they are now taking up government schemes under which they are fencing their entire villages with solar fencing, so that they don't directly raid into their agricultural crops.
मेरा नाम तेंजिन नूरबू है, मैं तवांग से बिलोंग्स करता हूँ। हमारा यहाँ खेती में जब बंदर आता है तो हम लोग उनको फिर ऐसे इतना हार्म नहीं करता है, मार के ऐसे नहीं करता है, डराता है, भगाता है, मतलब उनको भी इतना नुकसान पहुँचाने का तो कोशिश नहीं करता हम लोग भी।
In case of Tawang people, they are having a very good relations with this animal because they don't kill, they don't like to harm any animals, whether they are monkey or other carnivores. They have a very cordial relations with them because of their Buddhism religions.
जंगली जानवर को बचाना है बोल के ऐसा नहीं है, तो हर जानवर को या सेशियन बींग्स को या ह्यूमन बींग्स को ऑल ओवर जो होल में हम लोग जैसा जीव जंतु हो जो सुख चाहता है दुख नहीं चाहते, उसको सबको हम लोग अगर मदद कर सके तो मदद करें, अगर नहीं कर सके तो उसको नुकसान नहीं करना, वही हमारे बुद्धिज्म में मेन एक चीज़ ये बढ़ाता है।
We believe there would be a transboundary population of Sela macaque in Bhutan as well as in Tibet. We know this species is fairly threatened due to the retaliation killing, and also we don't know the current contemporary distribution and the population size. So we want to have a species oriented conservation action plan, and the conservationist and biologists working in Bhutan and in Tibet, so they should also come forward, and we are also in a way of seeking dialogue with them so that we can have a a complete status or the holistic understanding of the species in this landscape. And we also look forward that the species conservation group of the IUCN, they should look into this discovery and kind of assess this species at global scale.